welcome to the Precizion podcast. And I'm here this evening joined by my dear friend, Julie Smith. I'm sure she won't mind me saying that we're both women of a certain age.
Indeed, yes.
Yes, and we've known one another for such a long time now. I can hardly remember how long it is, Julie.
I reckon it's 25 years.
It's such a long time.
About 25 years, yes.
And I know when we first met, we were both at the stage of getting married, weren't we? Actually,
we were.
We got
married.
Actually,
you moved out of your house, and I moved into your house.
Oh my gosh, I'd totally forgotten that. Yeah, we moved. Yeah, and then you loved that house, and then something bad happened. What was it? You had a flood, was it?
The water tank in the loft burst, and the whole house was trashed for 6 months.
I'm glad I was gone when that happened.
Yeah, lucky escape.
Yeah. So we were both getting married. You got married the year before me.
97.
Yeah, and we were 98 in the same venue. Can you remember? It rained on your day.
Yeah, and it was sunny on yours, which is quite fortunate as you had a horse and carriage.
Yeah, I'm so happy I had a horse and carriage, and yeah, rain would not have gone down well. So we, this time that has passed, intervening time, we've been in touch on and off, haven't we? And so we're lucky that we live near enough to visit one another. However, at the moment, that's not possible. So we're doing this meeting via the medium of the internet, and so we're talking tonight about menopause, how that affects our bodies, and the things we can do to combat those effects. And so I know that for me, the menopause has just hit me in the last year, and I'm kind of feeling the effects. I don't know about you.
What symptoms did you notice first?
Well, so the first things that I started to notice was the temperature fluctuation.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that day and night, or just night time?
No, it was just at the night to begin with, just at the night time. But also, a raft of other symptoms that you don't necessarily know that that's what it is at the time, do you? Because I was in the peri for about 5 years, a good 5 years beforehand. And so you're not kind of really expecting that's what it is. But on reflection, I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Yeah.
But, the thing that even those of us who don't have a lot of symptoms, have you had symptoms?
Well, yeah, the hotness at night, because 2 years ago we were on holiday in Italy and it was very hot because it was August. And so I was waking up in the night really, really hot. So I thought it was just the climate because we were in a hot country. Yeah. But then when we came home to the good old UK, I was still waking up really hot at night. So I realised actually it must have been in Italy 2 years ago that it actually started with the hot. Not sweats, I don't get sweats, but I just get really hot really quickly. Yeah. And then hot, cold. But I don't sweat, so I just get really hot really quickly.
I don't sweat, and I've never really been somebody who has done a lot of sweating, even though I've tried, believe me, with all the exercises I've done. And so, but it's also almost worse, the fact that you're not sweating somehow.
I sweat more nowadays with exercise than I used to do, but the night hotness is not sweaty heat. It's just getting hot and then cold and then hot and then cold.
And that's probably better in a way, because you do hear about poor people who have to get up and change night gear and all of that.
Yeah, that's not happened just yet.
No, not. Well, I must say, I did start to get them during the day, and it was absolutely messing with my mind because I was on and off with the clothing, and teaching, in the middle of teaching Pilates. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that, of course. Precizion is my business, my Pilates, online Pilates business. And so I teach and Pilates quite a lot during the day. And it was really messing with my mind, the fact that I was suddenly on fire, would really lose my train of thought as a consequence. But do you know what? As a physio, I've been qualified to use acupuncture.
Oh yeah.
And I found a couple of spots, a recipe, if you like, for the hot sweats, and I think I've managed to cure them.
Wow.
Yeah, so don't tell anybody, will you?
No. Try not to.
Yeah, try not to. Yeah, so I mean, it was messing with me so much. I don't know. I can't think of anything else it could be, because that's the only thing I've been doing differently. So yeah, I'm really glad about that. But you know, the thing is, you start to have physical symptoms, and then you can't help but know that the hormone balance in the body is changing, and that has effects through the whole of the body, doesn't it? Not just, you know, the temperature and the memory and whatever else happens, but the tissues, the collagen, you know, the skin, the elasticity is not quite as good, and then it brings us to the bones, which is something that I'm quite passionate about. You know, looking after our physical body with exercise is something I'm really passionate about. And so, what do you do for exercise, Julie?
Well, my exercise history is very poor.
Oh.
So I never liked exercise. I was always really lucky. I was always slim, and I was always in a pretty active work. So I always felt I was quite active in the day. And I never really liked exercise, so I didn't do. But the old step aerobics in the 90s, you know, that we used to go to up in Scotland, and just more fads of step aerobics. Maybe a fad of going to a gym for a little while. I never joined a gym, but just little fads of things. But never really into running or anything like that. But then only in probably the last 10 years, decided to do a bit more exercise. Would love to run, tried running, hurt my hips, they really ached. So I now do lots and lots of walking. And in fact, since lockdown, I've never done as much exercise in all my life. Wonderful. So I go for a 5k, sometimes 10k walk. Wow. Not every day, I'd say 5 days out of 7. I don't walk on the day I'm doing Pilates. I do Zumba. I've got a friend who's doing Zumba.
Oh yeah, good.
So I'm doing Zumba. I normally do Zumba. I started Zumba just last year. That's once a week. That's quite energetic. I used to do Pilates for a little while, and then stopped for whatever reason. But I must say I do like the at-home Pilates that I'm now doing with yourself.
Do you?
But the thing I've noticed is weight gain.
Oh.
I've always been really skinny when I was a teenager, skinny in my 20s, and then I can see my weight going up. And it's my eating pattern's not changed. I'm very conscious of what I eat, but I'm still putting weight on now, and I think that's probably a menopause thing.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
I'm interested in yourself because you are as slim as you've always been, and obviously that's not affected you, but you do obviously a lot more exercise than me. So
well, yeah, I think the thing that I'm finding increasingly about about the weight management is that exercise alone isn't enough anymore. I've always exercised to eat, really was sort of the way I manage things, because I love my food. Anybody who knows me will know I absolutely love my food. But yeah, I've changed a few things actually about that. So, the biggest thing I've done really is the time restricted eating. I don't know if that's something you've heard about.
Time restricted, is that not eating after a certain time of day?
It's just having a smaller window when you consume whatever calories it is you're going to consume, whatever nutrition, I should say, rather than calories. So that's something that I've been following, and I think it's definitely making a difference to me. And so interestingly, I saw an article Michael Mosley had put into one of the Saturday magazines this week, and he was talking again about this notion of intermittent fasting actually helping to reduce the general overall level of inflammation in the body, and how that could in some way contribute to our boosting our immune system and being able to fight off this horrid virus should we...
Intermittent fasting?
Yeah, so there's different words, different terminology. Intermittent fasting is one of Michael Mosley's books, the 5 to 2, 2 days a week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the 2 days a week you have, I think it's something like 800 calories, and then the rest, and the rest of the week you might eat normally, but that's, one way of doing it. And then the way that I've moved towards is this time restricted window, so that you're having good nutrition and everything, but you don't go mad with processed food or anything. It's just that the window that you eat in is ideally less than 12 hours. Is what the research is saying, and if you can get it down to 10, then you might actually notice that that the weight is starts to creep down in the right direction, or the other direction.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. But I kind of hesitate to talk about trying to diet, because it's more about optimal nutrition to fuel the body. If we think of food as fuel, then we're less inclined to think of treats being a good thing, and more inclined to think about the quality of the food that we consume. And so we need to nourish our bodies, especially at this time, because of what I was talking about, the loss of bone. 20% of the bone loss will occur in the first 5 to 7 years after the menopause. So that's not to be sneezed at, is it? And so bone building activities, whether it's the nourishment is part of it, but for me, the looking at it from the physical point of view, the activity point of view, loading the bones, weight bearing exercises, walking, awesome, get out there, get your vitamin D, the sunshine on your skin, especially over the last few weeks. I mean, gosh, load the bones, but to preserve the function of the body, we need to, and I think you might have said this to me, that you were starting to feel a bit stiff.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Stiffer than we ever felt before. Never.
Those hip exercises in Pilates are so hard.
Yeah, well, they're hard now, but that's 3 weeks into the program, isn't it? And so after, what you should notice as time passes is they get less hard, and then you kind of take for granted what your body does, and you don't realize what it can't do until you ask it.
So it can still improve even at my age.
Oh my goodness, of course. Yeah, we can. Yeah, you're in the prime of your life, Julie. I say you because we're the same age. We're in the prime of our lives.
There's hope yet then.
Yeah. You're not quite as old as me, are you? I think you're just a little bit younger still.
51.
Yeah, I'm 53 this month, Julie.
Oh.
It's my birthday. Oh, and you know what? I would have been having you over to one of my barbecues or something, but we can't do that because
John's got his 50th this month, but it's still not really, 6 people, is it?
Yes, not 6 much
allowed in your garden.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if I was on the list of 6 people, I would come, put it that way. Yeah, no, I think this is it. You don't always you don't realize what you can't do until you try and do it, and that's how sometimes we end up getting into a bit of a decline, and it's only when that everyday tasks become a challenge.
I used to think I was okay. I was really fit. I could walk a distance. I can keep active at work. And it's actually when you start doing things like Pilates, realising how stiff.
Pushing the envelope, moving outside your comfort zone. And I was talking about this with my son, Ben, because I talk to him about everything pretty much. He doesn't like it necessarily.
He just sits and listens.
Yeah. It's pushing the envelope. What is it that makes us do it? You said, you hadn't exercised because you were slim, and but not even, not everybody's slim, and they still don't choose to go out of the way to exercise. And I don't quite know what it is that drives us to do it, but what I do know is that once you get the bug,
that's what everybody says. I'm waiting to get that bug.
Oh, you're not still waiting?
That's one bug I'm still waiting to get. Actually, no, I do. No, because I did bring myself to do Pilates 3 times this week. So I, whether it's because I've got the time at the moment, I'd like to think that that's going to carry on when I get back to working full time.
Well,
but I certainly, if I've not been for a walk, then I'll know that I need to go. So maybe I'm starting to get that the dust's coming off that bug. It's time to wake up.
Yeah, it's how to get to that place.
Yes, it's something that you really enjoy, isn't it?
Yeah, that is key, undoubtedly. But then, I said this to somebody the other day, how, you don't know you're going to enjoy it until you try it.
That's right.
So that's got to be something. And you know what? Your body, I think, can't help but enjoy the effects.
Yeah.
And also the practicing mind-body type programs, disciplines like Pilates and yoga, they invariably, they're going to impact on your central nervous system, and you're going to get that feel-good factor, even despite the fact that, you say, oh, my hips felt stiff or whatever, but you do come away with this.
Now, yeah.
Don't you? And so if you kind of put yourself out there to try something new, if you've never tried it before, knowing that, I say this sometimes in class, it's a bit like medicine. You don't necessarily like the flavor of it, but you like the effects. And that's and that can be just the mental effects, the effects on the stress relief. Oh my gosh, the stress of this, I'm really, it's driving me out of my mind almost, if I don't keep it in check, what the future's going to be like, how.
Yeah, you just have to think of other things, because if you think about it too much.
Yeah, well, so like you said, I go for a walk, or I do some yoga, I do some Pilates. I am very fortunate to be in that position of knowing what to do as well, because, needing a bit of guidance sometimes is the thing that stops people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not knowing that you might hurt yourself. And I certainly know that.
Well, that's it. So it's knowing whether a pain that you've got is something you've got to fight through, or actually does it mean you need to stop?
Yeah,
that's the kind of, for a novice like myself, no pain, no gain. But actually, if it's hurting when you're a certain age, does that mean actually stop, don't do any more, wait?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, that, because pain is also something that we perceive differently from person to person.
Is it uncomfortable, or is it really hurting?
Yeah. So you can think of a scale of 0 to 10. And so 10, if it was 10, then you would know that's pain that is detrimental, and you don't want to go there with that. But there's a range of sensation which you might call discomfort. You might call it a stretching sensation, and maybe it's 3 or 4 out of 10. And that could be okay to experience that sensation. And so what I generally say to people is, we're looking for the boundaries, the edge. And when we get to the edge, whether that's through the sensation of pain, or a sensation of discomfort, rather, I should say, or whether it's a sensation of stretch or tightness or stiffness, whatever that sensation is, you go to the edge of that sensation. And then, in order to make a shift, you have to explore the boundary, because if you don't explore the boundary, you won't get the change. And the shift and the change is what you come for. If you don't get the shift, if you're not doing that, then you're thinking, well, why am I bothering? So we go to the boundaries and just nudge them.
Yes.
So the no pain, no gain philosophy isn't helpful necessarily in this context, that people can hurt themselves. And believe me, I know a few of my clients who've been jumping around to high interval training online, I won't mention any names, thinking that this was a good idea because, whatever reason. And I know at least 2 of them are now injured because of doing something that the body's
Shouldn't really laugh, but yeah.
Well, no, I'm not laughing at that, are we? But so it's very real possibility that we can hurt ourselves. And the last thing I want to do is be injured and then not be able to do the things that are going to be really good for me.
Right.
So, put the boundaries are there. Your body has boundaries, and they've been built up over a long period of time for those of us now at this age. And so we don't smash through the boundaries. No, we don't. We explore the boundaries. We nudge the boundaries. We want to make a change. We want to shift, but we do it gently and sensibly. And that, that's something.
So do you think it's a mixture of high impact and stretching that you need to continue doing?
You need to do impact exercise. Yes, you do. Definitely, you need impact.
Tips.
Well, for the lower limb particularly, yeah. The shock.
Yeah.
I'm clapping. You can't see me. I forgot. The kind of shock waves that go through the bones ultimately will create the necessary changes to shift the process in the favor of building bone, and that's a good thing. But ultimately, you have to manage that at a level. You can't go from ground zero to suddenly jumping around like a maniac.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to approach these things maybe in a phased way. And if you think about steps that you take when you're out walking, either on hard pavements, or currently the ground was so very hard, wasn't it? And you're out walking, and that will invariably be sending the shocks up through the bones. If you can do, I think, it's the Royal Osteoporosis Society came up with some guidance, and off the top of my head, I can't quite remember, but it was something like count 50 shocks to the bones every day, and that would be a good thing. So if you're, if you're walking 5 kilometers, you're definitely doing more than that, aren't you?
That's good.
And walking can be enough in terms of the loading, but also then you've got to think about the upper limb, haven't you? How do we load the upper limb? And
it's thinking about the tire around the middle.
Is that what you're thinking about? Well, the tire around the middle, like we've got to get into the core, haven't we? And sometimes it's just a kind of a habitual sense of allowing it all to hang loose. That's where people get to, a sort of a lack of awareness of what is actually happening in the middle of your body.
Yeah.
That you're not tuned into, and being able to activate muscles with only.
So I know posture can improve it, because you talk about posture a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. The posture is so very crucial. In terms of loading the bones, you want to load them in the way that is going to distribute the load in the most optimal fashion, so that the load is shared in the way between all the different structures, the bones, the ligaments, and the muscles. And so by putting the joints into the appropriate alignment, then you're going to allow for the load to be distributed more evenly. And again, that's going to reduce your risk of injury, but also the aesthetic of standing up straight is so much better. When we look at each other, isn't it? If we stand like, you just have to look at Darcy Bussell on the television, don't you? When she's, any dancer, I always think dancers have the most fabulous posture, all those years of training, but they don't feel like they're holding themselves up anymore, because it's become the default.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we want to practice these things enough that ultimately it becomes the default, that you hold yourself up. And so we get to a place where we're sagging on our ligaments, hanging on the joints, because as human beings, we will always seek out the position of the least effort. And that's a evolutionary thing, because the less energy that we use, the more likely we are to survive, i.e. to run away from the tiger. If you've got the energy, then you're going to be able to do that, and you will survive.
Yeah.
It's an evolutionary thing that you will be relaxed as much as you possibly can. And so this idea that, if you see somebody like good old Darcy Bussell standing, she's got muscles switched on, they're holding her up. It's not just that she's genetically put together that way. She is actively standing rather than passively hanging on the ligaments and the joints.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's something that you practice, and the more you practice it, the more it becomes the default. You do it without thinking about it. And we're all going to relax some of the time. Even Darcy Bussell.
Yes. I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think about supplements?
Supplements?
Bones and things. Supplements of bones.
Yeah, well, there's different schools of thought on supplementation. Obviously, calcium going in, having the right levels of calcium, but then we need the vitamin D, don't we, to absorb it. And then it's a question of the quality of the supplements that you take as well. And it's really not my field of expertise, but I do know that vitamin D deficiency is very common, and the recommendations are now that we should take a vitamin D supplement every day in this country, and that's even in the summer.
Yeah. I do take vitamin D, actually.
Do you? Yeah.
I think working with young people and teenagers, a lot of the teenagers, special needs obviously, have been prescribed vitamin D. They don't go out anyway.
Oh, that's true.
A lot of them do seem to have it as a routine. And it got me to think, actually, when I'm working, I don't have much sunlight, because if I'm working full time, I'm not outside enough. And the weather, apart from the last month, is never normally that good. So I thought maybe actually we should all start taking it. So that's what I have taken. I'm just thinking about joints. Do I need to take some oil?
Oh, fish oil.
Things like this. The old Tin Man, grease the joints like the Tin Man does.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things we can do is keep up the fluid balance.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Because, if you
no one drinks enough.
Yeah, your joints, particularly the synovial joints, like your knees and your hips, are filled with synovial fluid. I mean, that's got to come from somewhere in the body, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So the synovial fluid in the joints is what provides the nourishment to the cartilage. The nutrients are actually within the fluid, and they get kind of squished into the cartilage. And when we walk and move about, and that's why walking and moving about is so important for joints. People who start to get painful joints, maybe avoidance is such a default strategy for a human being. You start to think your joints are hurting you, so you avoid the things that might make it hurt. But in actual fact, walking and moving joints is going to continue to nourish the structures, particularly the cartilage in the joints, which doesn't have a fabulous circulation. And so that fluid balance, really important. And it's really important for bone as well, that we have maintain good levels of hydration, which is something, again, that we're not always very good at when we're working, so busy full-time working and everything. And I know I should have said that you're a nurse, working with the children, and you've been a nurse forever, haven't you? That's
forever. Yes, been a nurse for 30 plus years. Never breaking the middle, but 30 plus years.
That's right. Like I was a physio all that time, and it's kind of in your genes, isn't it?
But we go around encouraging our children to drink. We need to practice it ourselves. Well, they're as bad as anybody else, Nobody drinks enough. I don't think anybody drinks enough.
No, and I don't feel like I know enough about supplementation to talk with any authority. But the thing that where I was talking about Miss Michael Mosley's recommendations, the intermittent fasting, bringing down the general level of just this low-grade inflammation that's in the whole of the body. If you've got a painful joint and you're also maybe eating pro-inflammatory foods, there's certain foods, aren't there, that drive inflammation in the body. And so if you've got a diet that's high in pro-inflammatory foods, and also you're eating, because nowadays, let's face it, you could eat from getting out of bed to going back to bed if you wanted to. That it's so available, and so they're having this window of eating that reduces. The research is showing that it just reduces this overall level of inflammation in the body. It gives the gut a rest as well, and that's a really good thing for the gut, to have a rest. I think that it's how we were designed to be originally, at the outset. And so if you do have that, I notice it myself that, I've got one big toe that's got a bit of the old osteoarthritis in it.
Yes. Yeah.
And the very attractive bunion.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. That's a signature of when you turn 50. The bunion comes.
Bunion. And I always say to my clients, I don't know what I did to deserve my granny's feet, but gosh, I've definitely got them now. I'm definitely,
Yeah.
I see my granny's feet every time I look down nowadays. But I have this joint that just kind of throbs every now and again.
Yeah.
And so I really noticed that when, because I am actually quite good most of the time following nutrition, good nutritious, basically just real food. That's
Do you wear support shoes then?
Do I wear support shoes? Oh, well, yeah, because footwear is important. There's different schools of thoughts on the footwear. Julie, this is like enough for about 25 podcasts. We could go on and on. Everybody's just about nodded off at this point.
Part 2 next time.
Round 2. So yeah, because of course, I don't know if I ever told you, but I was the foot physio at Doncaster Royal Infirmary for about 5 years.
Were you there when I was there?
Yeah, we've had this discussion before.
Yeah.
I was there, oh my gosh, it was like 90 to 95 or 90.
Yeah, that was when I was there. Yeah.
And I did actually work in Peds, to start off with there.
I'd love to go back in time and just see if we actually
crossed paths and didn't know it.
Yeah.
I know we wonder that. Anyway, so yeah, I was like, they used to call me Phillipa the foot. That's how many feet I used to see in a week. And do you know what? I love feet. It never bothered me one little bit. Yeah, so footwear, and I would work with the podiatrist, and we'd come up with all these different.
Because I need the support for one of my feet. I've refused to give in. I'm still too young.
Well, I know, and so like I was saying, there's a whole movement now, the barefoot movement, which is about having less between you and the ground, which theoretically encourages the muscles of the feet, because like I was saying, the postural muscles are designed to hold us up, and similarly, we've got muscles in our feet. That if only we gave them the attention they deserved, maybe they would hold us up for a bit longer too. But you know what? I keep thinking it's like you wouldn't have any time in the day if you did everything. Would you?
No.
You'd be so busy the whole time. Anyway, I think I've absolutely loved talking to you today, Julie, and I really should do this again, because
we should do.
Yeah, you have such good questions. So thank you so much for being my very first victim on the Precizion podcast. And, we're going to talk again real soon.
Yes, that'd be great. Look forward to that.
Thanks. Take care now.
See you then. Bye. Bye.